Good day, everybody. It's Zach Lindquist here, otherwise known on Reddit as the Ben Shapiro you got on Wish.com, but honestly, who uses Reddit anymore? And I'm here today with a nasty case of costochondritis and with an article that somebody sent me called 10 Politically Incorrect Reasons We're Still Married. Now, obviously, I wrote a whole book on being single, on dating. I don't usually give a whole lot of advice on marriage, and rightly so, because who wants to hear the marriage advice of somebody who just celebrated his second wedding anniversary this week with his wife? So yeah, anything I say about marriage, you're free to take it with a grain of salt. I don't have a whole heck of a lot of experience in that area. My wife and I've been married for a relatively short period of time. But these folks who wrote this article have been married for, or at the time of this writing, had been married for over 2 decades. So I thought it was worth going over what they had to say on the topic about why they're still married, and of course give my thoughts about it. But my thoughts are of, I guess, slightly minor importance because again I've only been married for a couple of years. But anyhow, let's get into it, shall we? 10 politically incorrect reasons why we're still married. Politically incorrect reason number 1: we put our spouse's needs ahead of our own needs. From what we've learned, our basic needs are different from each other.
They're different.
Now, of course, broadly speaking, generally speaking, this is, on its face, very good advice, right? It's because if you haven't figured it out yet, marriage is not a selfish endeavor, right? If you get into marriage for purely selfish reasons, it's not going to be a very healthy marriage. Okay, marriage is wonderful, it's great, but it is an act of sacrifice, right? Men are giving up their freedom, women to a certain extent the same thing, but it's it's not an institution to be entered into for purely selfish reasons. Now, everybody has their reasons that they want to get married, of course, but broadly speaking, of course, when you're married, you are no longer your first priority. Okay, your spouse is your first priority. And the same is true when you have kids. I mean, your kids come before yourself, but your spouse still comes first, because a healthy marriage makes for healthy kids. Anyhow, so, and taking this broad example and shaving it down a bit to something a bit more specific, I'm not sure if this is what they meant when they wrote this point, but in terms of, well, many married men tend to complain a lot that, of course, they don't get as much sex as they would like. You know, they're not as intimate as they would like to be, or as consistently as they would like to be. And a lot of this comes down to the same reasoning. Of course, this is not a cure-all solution here, but a lot of the time, the men who are complaining that they don't get as much sex from their spouses as they would like, a lot of times these men don't, when they actually are intimate, don't tend to make their spouse their first priority in those instances, right? They're just thinking about what how they feel and if they can be satisfied.
I think it's all about you.
But the irony is that if these men really want their spouses to want to come back, they should probably make their spouses a bit more of a priority, right? Men, if you want your wife to come back and be intimate with you, maybe make her want to come back, okay? Make her your priority in the bedroom. And again, this is politically incorrect to talk about, especially for Christians, but if her pleasure comes first before your own, I can almost guarantee you that she's going to want to come back later. Okay, you're probably going to get a bit more than you're getting right now, not making her your priority. Politically incorrect reason number 2. And this is going to tick a lot of people off, but I don't think they care. If it's true, it's true, right? We've made our physical appearance a priority. Neither one of us would admit to being tens by any stretch of the imagination, but we want to look sexy for each other. We work at it. That includes eating right, exercise, clothes, hair, etc. For example, Emily and I have made a pact. She decides what my hair looks like, and I have decided what her hair looks like. Again, we prioritize the needs of our spouse. So overall, that is great advice, right? You want to look good for your spouse. You want to put some effort in for your spouse. Now, of course, I would not dare to try to decide what my wife's hair looks like because I would be completely clueless. I have no idea what I'm talking about. This is from somebody whose mother was a hairstylist. I am completely clueless. Now, if my wife wants to dictate how I look up here in the head region, that's totally up to her. I think that would probably be a good idea. But yes, effort goes a long way with your spouse, and your physical appearance does play into that, right? I mean, look, I'm not a 10. I will fully admit that. But my wife still appreciates it when I go out of my way to look good for her, when I go out of my way to smell good for her, right? Personal hygiene is a definite must. Real quick tip, gentlemen. Your woman is not going to want to come near you. She's not going to want to kiss you, much less do all the other fun stuff that you enjoy, if your breath smells like the bathroom does after you've had Taco Bell. I mean, putting effort in generally is a very good idea. Apathy has never been the most desirable trait to have, right? So yes, it is very. It makes me feel very special when my wife wants to look good for me. She's beautiful without makeup. I love her very much, and I think she's very attractive, just naturally. But I still appreciate it when she puts in effort for me. Does that make sense? When she tries for me, it makes me feel special, and she certainly looks good all the same. So I'm not complaining when my wife wants to look good for me, when she wants to dress to the nines and spend an hour and a half minimum doing her makeup. That does not bother me because she is trying for me and she looks fantastic for me. And that makes me feel very exclusive. That makes me feel very, very special to her. And she appreciates it when I not only look good for her, but when I go out of my way to do romantic things for her. Right? So the common denominator here is effort. When a spouse tries for their spouse, when I try for my wife, when she tries for me. That is the common denominator here. If you're apathetic in your marriage is going to suffer. If you're trying for one another, and that includes, yes, looking good for them, being healthy, clothes, hair, etc. If you're putting in an effort for your spouse, even just to be sexy for your spouse, that will go a very long way. Reason number 3. We've embraced traditional roles. Prepare for some feminist screams. I work outside the home and Emily works inside the home. Does that mean we're against couples who try to juggle 2 jobs outside the home? Absolutely not. For Emily, though, she gains significance through being a great wife, mother, and home manager. That's a full-time job. She owns that role. It really is quite a bit of stress that we know other couples have to navigate. Now, it seems ridiculous to me that so many people would be violently opposed to this point of view. As if there was something wrong with a woman's natural inclination to be a mother and behave like a mother. Now, I know a lot of... It's been hammered into us for decades now that a woman should want to be her own woman, right? That it's just wrong for her to not want to have a career and to stay home with children and raise them into well-adjusted adults. But this is simply an undeniable fact that children who grow up with a parent in the home, particularly a nurturing mother, tend to be well-adjusted when they grow up. They tend to be better adjusted, I should say, when they grow up. And they tend to have more firm values because that their mother would have instilled in them over those years. If a woman has the time or the means to stay home with their children, I think that's a very admirable pursuit. Now, I know a lot of couples struggle with this. They can't manage with only one income. Okay, so both parents have to work. I get that. There are seasons in life where certain compromises have to be made. I'm not opposed to that, and obviously I'm not against women working because my wife is a nurse, right? And she does very good in that role. And we don't have kids yet, so we haven't had to deal with this particular. We haven't had to navigate this particular hurdle. But all the same, the fact that a woman wants to stay home with her children, I think that's perfectly natural. That's a wonderful thing. Raise the next generation properly. Make sure that they have their values firmly placed. They know why they believe what they believe. And, homeschooling is becoming a more attractive prospect by the day because the public school system is becoming increasingly scary. If you've been paying attention at all, you know how crazy public education is getting. Okay, with this transgender theory going on, that's just the tip of the iceberg. Okay, there's a lot of stuff going on in the public school system that makes me question why you would trust the government with your kids for 6+ hours a day. I question your judgment there. Now, you can say that this is because I don't have kids yet. I haven't had to deal with this. Okay, that's true. I'm simply pointing out if you trust the government schools with your kids for many hours a day, don't be surprised when the government's values, so-called, are what your kids learn and what they tend to walk away with. The government wants your kids in the public school system. They want mothers to work full time because they can tax you. That's the long and short of it. That's the whole feminist movement right there. Okay, they want you to work so that the government can make more money off you. That's the long and short of it. So if you think that's worth sacrificing your children on the altar of success and money, have at it. But I think if you can at all manage it, I think having a parent at home with the children is a wonderful, admirable, and frankly natural thing. Women make great mothers. So if you want to be a mother, please be a mother. Be a good one. I'm sure you can be the very best. Politically incorrect reason number 4. We prioritize our marriage over our careers. To do this, we have a tight budget. We spend less than we make. We avoid debt. We do this so that we can live on one income. We do this so that we can invest in time away, like our recent trip to Cancun. We say no to overcommitment in our careers so we can enjoy regular time together. So this is something that is talked about sometimes, but not often enough, quite frankly. There's a lot of people want to... Their first inclination is that if they want to have a healthy marriage, they have to have all the money, right? That if they have more money, then their marriage will be easier, and that's just not true. It's never been true. And the irony of it is that if you focus more on your career and less on your marriage is going to suffer, and if your marriage suffers, then so does your career, right? If your home life is stressful, you're going to be stressed out with your job. This is unavoidable. You can't completely separate the two. Now, if your marriage is healthy, then you are going to be of healthier state of mind at work, and you're going to be more productive. So your marriage life is important for many, many reasons. So yes, the most important thing in your life when you're married is your marriage. If your marriage suffers, everything else in your life suffers. Your kids suffer, your job suffers, everything else is affected by a bad marriage. And everything is affected by a good marriage as well, in very positive ways. Politically incorrect reason number 5. We prioritize our marriage over our children. I think I made reference to something similar earlier. We have 4 beautiful kids, but they will eventually grow up and leave. My relationship and friendship with my wife is more important. Ironically, when we put our marriage relationship first, our kids feel more loved and more secure. This is one of the reasons we are strict about limiting the activities our kids engage in outside of school. Okay, so yes, that makes perfect sense. A first inclination of many married couples is to make the kids their whole world, right? This is a first instinct, I suppose. They want to focus all on the kids, but that's a rookie mistake. You don't want to do that because, like they say, your kids are eventually going to leave, and you want to still like each other after they're gone. There are too many examples I can name of couples whose kids leave, and then they realize they're living with a stranger now, and then the marriage just ends abruptly. But a healthy marriage makes for a healthy child, and a child's whole world revolves around his parents, right? They're dependent on their parents for everything, so their parents make up literally their whole universe. A kid is dependent on their parents for shelter, for food, for comfort, for affection. Their parents make up every part of their world. And when the parents break up, that world is destroyed. It's like Grand Moff Tarkin taking a Death Star to their planet, okay? The kids are never okay when their parents split up. This is a horrible thing. So yes, when the marriage is prioritized, the kids benefit from this. They flourish from this. So the best thing you can do for your children is stay married. The best thing you can do for your children is prioritize the marriage over them. Politically incorrect reason number 6. We didn't have sex before marriage. Thank you. We didn't live together. We dated for 6 years before we got married. I'll come back to that. I can assure you we wanted to have sex before marriage. Then why did you wait 6 years to get married? Okay, I'm sorry, I'll come back to that. Again, God forgives. I know all couples can't begin here, but we did. Well, they can, they just choose not to. And I'm convinced learning that discipline to restrain ourselves before marriage has freed us up to thoroughly enjoy ourselves after marriage. Okay, so there's a few things I like about this and a few things I hate, naturally. First of all, now, dating, not having sex while you're dating, that's a good thing. That's very good. There are many things to benefit from there, but dating for 6 years? What? I mean, don't tell people to date for 6 years. Are you kidding me? That's if you want people to sin sexually, that's how you do it. Okay, I mean, kudos to them for managing to restrain themselves for that long. Most people won't. Okay, the longer you are dating, the longer you're together, the less likely you are to restrain yourself. Okay, because young people want to have sex, and willpower is finite. Okay, it's not gonna last forever. I've said it before. I'll say it again. Ladies, if a man does not commit to marry you within a year, if he doesn't propose to you inside of a year, break it off and move on. Because there are too many couples who date for 6, 7, 8 years, break it off, and then do it all over again. Okay? Most of the time they're having sex with those people for that period of time. But picture this. You date a guy for 6 or 7 years. You start dating when you're 22, you date for 6 years, now you're 28. You break it up, you move on. You meet another guy, you date for 7 years, now you're in your mid to late 30s. That doesn't work out. You break it up and move on. You see the problem here? Okay? If you're dating for that long, you break up, you're not going to live forever. Okay? By the time you're in your 40s, you're most likely half dead. Okay? And most of you won't be able to have kids at that point either. Just pointing it out. And if you're dating for 6 years, odds are you're having sex too, because willpower is finite. So you're messing yourself up even more. If you're dating for 6 years and you haven't committed to each other, that's a problem. Okay. I mean, God bless these people. They're trying to help people out, but that's just stupid. If you can restrain yourself for 6 years, God bless you if you can, but you're in the vast minority, okay? Okay, the vast majority of people are not going to hold it back for that long. Willpower is finite. And my wife and I would still be dating if we did that. Okay. Oh goodness, I'm so glad that's not true. But I mean, look, I got engaged to my wife after 3.5 months because, as Paul writes, it is better to marry than to burn with passion. And for the first time ever, after 3 months, I was hearing the Jonas Brothers in my head. That's never happened before. I was hearing, I'm burning up for you, baby. Okay. If you are feeling like that, if you are feeling the passion, it's time to get married. Just do it. If you are feeling en fuego, just marry the girl and enjoy the girl. Don't be waiting another 6, 7, 8 years before committing to this woman. You have the passion for her, marry her, make that commitment, and enjoy. Don't set yourself up for sexual sin by waiting forever. Now, sticking on this topic for just a moment longer, speaking directly to you ladies now, and some of you will hate me for this, but this is to your benefit, okay? So just hear me out. A man's fundamental interest in the woman, I'm sorry, is his sex drive. If it wasn't for his sex drive, he probably wouldn't be all that interested in getting married to begin with. He would not want to sacrifice his freedom for that. Now, a lot of women get mad when I say that, but this is what gives you power. This is the power that women wield over men. You have all the power in single and dating life. This is on you, ladies. You have this power over men. Now, the way you wield it, because most women wield it incorrectly, here's what you do. If you want the man to marry you, don't sleep with him. You withhold sex, the big thing that he wants. You withhold that until he commits to you what you want. He commits his life to you. He marries you. This is what you do. This is how you correctly wield this great weapon that you wield by nature. This is the power that God gave you. Okay? Now, if you give sex away for free before marriage, you surrender that power. You no longer have it. You withhold it until you get what you want. Marriage. And then have at it. Enjoy. Politically incorrect reason number 7. We've had lots of sex after marriage. Well, hallelujah. Hallelujah! Why did you wait 6 years to say that? Okay? God created us to have sexual desire. Yes, he did. That's his creation. Christian couples in particular need to get over their inhibitions, talk about sex, and continue to discover. Again, the principle of putting your spouse's needs ahead of your needs holds true here as well. If you want to help your spouse avoid temptations outside marriage, your sex life needs to stay spicy. Okay, well, if you haven't had a whole lot of sexual sin before marriage, you have really nothing to compare it to. So keeping your sex life active and spicy, it takes a lot less effort. Let's just say that. Now, keeping your sex life consistent and healthy, that's obviously a great thing. Having lots of sex after marriage, wonderful. Keep your marriage healthy. That's the best way to do it. One of the best ways to do it, but definitely the most fun way to do it. If you want, and this does hold true, that they're right here in this particular instance. If you want to help your spouse avoid temptations outside of marriage, this is particularly true of men. Keep the man happy. Okay. Keep him satisfied. Keep him wanting to come back for more. And men also, if you want to avoid sexual temptation outside of marriage, stay away from the porn. Okay, stay away from the comparison game. That's largely what porn does. It forces you to compare, both to the women on the screen, and it makes it a habit, and you compare it to everything and everyone else. So avoid the porn, for goodness sake. And yes, so sex, very good thing for your marriage. Have lots of it. Politically incorrect reason number 8. We enjoy wine together. Amen! My unchurched friends won't understand why this is politically incorrect. Trust me, it is with church people. Now, this is true particularly because the church has its own form of political correctness called legalism, which is people making arbitrary rules that make you more religious. Okay, this is faith by appearance. This is people who want to make up their own traditions, tell you what you have to look like, act like, how you have to speak in order to be a good Christian. This is legalism, and it is very annoying, and it's very unbiblical. Let's just say that this is the very thing that Jesus got onto the Pharisees about all the time, was legalism, and it's very unappetizing within the church. A lot of people get into it. I tend to call it out anytime I can. But anyway, this point goes on. In other words, we don't let religious people define how we live our lives, including our marriage. We let God's word direct our lives. Because of that, who we are publicly is who we are privately. We don't have to pretend to be someone we are not. We can be ourselves with each other and with everyone we do life with. There's a lot of freedom in that. So yeah, listen to the advice of your pastor and be in congregation with your church. But if something smells legalistic, just shrug it off. Okay, that's really all I can say. And this, by the way, is coming from somebody who likes the occasional glass of red wine, as well as the very occasional cigar. Right? This is something my brother and I like to do together. We get together for a cigar and we discuss theology and literature, things of that ilk. This is something we like to do. Now, the legalistic person would look at that and he would not see the theology. He would just see the cigar, and he would castigate us for that. These are the same people who would probably look at the conversations that J.R.R. Tolkien and C.S. Lewis, one of the greatest apologists of the last century, they would see them in a pub and judge them immediately for that. Never mind that Tolkien was in that pub with C.S. Lewis, gradually bringing him to Christ over a beer. They wouldn't see the Christ part. They wouldn't see a man being saved gradually and becoming one of the greatest apologists of all time. They would just see the beer and castigate Tolkien for having a beer as a Christian. A totally arbitrary rule because, look, Jesus drank wine, you dullards, okay? Okay, the Bible does not say don't drink. It says don't be a drunk. There's a pretty vast disconnect. Your arbitrary rules don't change that, okay? Creating God in your own image does not change that. Telling me what I have to look like, act like, speak like in order to be a good Christian does not change that. Now, this one should be considered common sense these days. I wish it was, but a lot of folks get flack for this rule. But here it is. Politically incorrect reason number 9. We never meet alone or publicly with a member of the opposite sex. I don't have meals alone with another woman. I won't travel alone, even in the car, with another woman. I won't meet a woman alone in an office without windows or without an open door. My consulting clients can verify this. This protects both of us from the temptations we all face. These protections help us avoid mistakes that would reduce the freedoms we have in our marriage. We're not willing to sacrifice that for a momentary inconvenience. So so this is I wish this was considered common sense. This is very admirable. I mean, and yeah, I live by this rule as well. You will never catch me alone with another woman who is not my wife. You won't. I'm not gonna risk my wife's honor to satisfy your politically correct notions. Okay, men and women are not the same. If I'm alone with another woman, there's the chance, at least, that I will experience sexual temptation. That's only natural, but it's something that I do not want to experience with somebody who is not my wife. So guess what? I'm not going to be with another woman who is not my wife. This is very straightforward reasoning here. And my wife is the same way. She will not spend time alone with another man. Even at work, she is careful about this. So yeah, I'm not going to put myself in any situation where it's even remotely possible that I could dishonor my wife or experience the temptation to dishonor my wife or be or be libeled or slandered and lied about or accused of having an adulterous affair. I'm not going to put myself in that position. So I think that's just common sense. Politically incorrect reason number 10. We're committed to a covenant where divorce is not an option. For Emily and me, that means we need to work at loving each other. We don't wait for love to happen. We work at it. Little side note, yes, love is a verb. It's an action. Okay. We need to discipline ourselves to avoid mistakes that could end our marriage. We prioritize our faith because that creates order for the rest of our lives, including in our marriage. Since we both agreed to fulfill this covenant till death do us part, we have confidence that, even when marriage is difficult, we will persevere. So, yes, like I interjected there, love is action. It is intentional. This is something that people in other countries understand very well, like India. Part of their culture there is arranged marriages because they understand that you learn to love somebody over a lifetime, right? You couples meet one another. They are. It's not at all like it's portrayed in media. An arranged marriage, the parents arrange for their children to meet. They arrange for the boy and the girl to meet, and in about half an hour, they decide, okay, do I want to marry this person or not? They have agency. They're allowed to say no. Okay, this is the misconception people have about arranged marriages, is that most of the time, the couple are allowed to say no, I don't want to marry this person. But they make the decision inside of half an hour, or just let's just say one meeting. Okay, they don't date for years. One meeting, they know whether or not they're gonna marry this person, and then they have the marriage. And guess what? They have the lowest divorce rates worldwide because they understand that love is action. You learn to marry somebody and you perform that action over a lifetime. This is something that these people understand as well. Love is a verb. You work at it. It's not a feeling. It's not something that fades. It's something that you do. It's intentional. When marriage is difficult, you try harder. You try harder at it and make your marriage work. That's the reality of marriage. Now, in my house, in my wife and I's house, the word divorce is a curse word. We don't say it. Okay, I don't even joke about it. We just don't say the word. It is verboten. It is forbidden for us to use the word divorce in our household. If you don't say it, you can't do it, right? If we don't talk about splitting up, we're not gonna split up. So yes, when marriage is difficult, that is the time when it is all the more important for you to love your spouse, to perform the act of loving your spouse. When marriage is easy, great. It's not going to be that way all the time. In fact, it rarely is easy. Marriage is it's not. I said it before. It's not a selfish endeavor. You're going to have to work at it. You're going to have to love your spouse intentionally. So outside of the whole dating for 6 years thing before getting married, I would say this is a pretty good article. Lots of solid advice, lots of good things to say. I hope my interjections and my takes on their advice were not too off-putting for you. I realize I have not been married as long as them, but I guess you can take my what I have to say with a grain of salt. But yeah, overall, I think that was good. I think I agree with at least 85% of it. So all well and good there. So I'll be right back here in about 18 years when I have a bit more marriage experience under my belt to give you my own politically incorrect reasons why we're still married article. In the meantime, thank you so much for tuning in. I'm Zach Lundquist. If you like what you heard, don't forget to like, share, and of course subscribe. It would really help me out immensely. Big Tech is really cracking down. There's a lot going into that. So the more you subscribe, the more you share on other platforms, the easier it will be for me to circulate. There's only so much they can do to suppress me. So please share as much as you possibly can on all the platforms you can. It will really help me out. And of course, if you have not yet, don't forget to check out my book, Back to the Basics of Love, A Single Christian's Guide to Dating, Sex, and Morality in the Secular World. I really believe in this book. I think you should too. So by all means, get yourself a copy, your loved ones a copy. Spread the word about it far and wide, please, by all means. Thank you so much for your time, and God bless.